Welcome to sportsbookreview.com. Good morning in the US, good afternoon in Europe, and good evening in the East. It's the Australian Open, it's the Grand Slam, and I've got James, I've got Snize, and Spread's joined us, and I love that, Spread, because I know that you're 2 hours behind. It's 6:30 in the morning, and that is dedication for you. I hope you've slept just a little bit.
Just a little bit, but it's all I need. Flash, and I'm excited to be here talking tennis with some sharp tennis minds.
I can't hear Spread, Rafa. Can you say that again? Say that again, Spread.
I said it's just a great morning. You know, I got all the sleep I need, and I'm just excited to be able to talk some tennis with some sharp tennis minds here on this panel.
Yeah, sharper than sharp. The 4 Grandmasters. I left Whale out because I need him for something else we do. Snize, how's it been so far for you?
It's been a bit treading water, really. Been quite some tricky conditions to cap. It's been a lot of wind. It's obviously rained a lot over the first few days, and we've had the usual upsets. A little bit of a special Australian Open this year, as we alluded to in breaking down with the ATP Cup and a lot of questions regarding players, but trending upwards here, and we are going to make it out fine in the end.
James, obviously you had the 6-0 the other day away, and I did tweet out, it's always lovely to have a bagel in the lost column. Do you pull the reins a little bit, make sure you don't give it all back, and you just become a little bit more selective, or do you go full steam ahead?
So start of the year is always selective to me. That's why I say it's, you don't get them often, especially not in January, but I'll take it. Obviously last night had a different treatment where my Mertens Watson to beat Mertens tip didn't go particularly well. She got bageled in the second set. But I mean, I kind of have the same approach across the whole time. I don't tend to respond to short-term swings. If I feel like I'm reading a tournament really well, then I'll go harder. But I mean, to be honest, those 6 bets were just very sensible bets, in my opinion, and they just happened to all come in. So it's just steady along for me.
Yeah, they're always sensible bets. It's whether they come in or not that you get paid. Listen, let's just crack on. And before I go into the individual bets, I've just got to remind you that we hit the 60,000 subscribers. So when you're watching this video, press subscribe, press the button so you get notified whenever there's a video coming on, and the content is now going to go with worldwide sports. So you could be a fan of the US markets, all the US sports, the European sports. So you're not going to miss a thing. This is your #1 place. As I said to you before, I'll be here for you, and then you could be there for me, because I need someone to talk to, because these people I get to speak to on the screen, they're just not like you. So, yeah, please subscribe, press the button. I'm going to start with you, James. We're going to start with the men. What have you got? And I know you're going to be selective.
Yeah, so I picked these out early. I've only gone for one so far, which was basically, I thought it was a very, very, I really would be surprised if this lost. It's the overbet in Querrey Sangren. And it was over 40.5 at -120. Now, I think I'm aware the line might have moved a little bit since I picked this out, but I think even 41.5, I still would be very surprised if that didn't come in with these two. So there's a few reasons. The most obvious one is always to point out that this is a pretty evenly priced match. Sangren is just a very slight underdog. So to me, with a player like Querrey, very big server, very serve reliant, especially on these quicker courts, it's just usually going to be a recipe for long matches. Now, Sangren's another American player who he doesn't seem to mind playing the big servers. People seem quite divided about this. Some people don't like them. Some people play really well against them. Sangren seems to be the latter. And so from my perspective, last round he beat Berrettini. Very similar kind of style. In fact, Berrettini's better than Querrey, at least from the back of the court. So the way I look at this, I would be very surprised if Sangren was not bringing a similar level to this match. He played Querrey in the past, and it was 3 tiebreaks. This is a slam, and it was 3 tiebreaks. So to me, this is the kind of situation where all we need really is 1 tiebreak, 4 sets, and an average of, 10.5 games per set would do us just fine. So I would be very surprised if that didn't come in. So to me, that's a nice value bet at -120.
Okay, so you've kicked off with Querrey and Sangren over 40.5. I'm going to come to you, Spread, because you've got an opinion on this match as well.
Right, and James did a great job of breaking down the players. And my handicap is basically, I think the Sandgren's in much better form. I was very impressed with his win over Berrettini, and the ground strokes is where I think he's really going to have the difference. Of course, Corey's got a great big serve, but if Sandgren can get into the extended rallies, the way that he's playing right now and the current form that he's in, I think he's definitely worth a look. I thought he should have been a slight favorite, so when I found out that he was an underdog and I was getting plus money, I jumped all over it. I'm excited to see him continue his form, and I think that his ability to win the longer rallies will be the difference in this match.
Okay, so we have James jumping in early on getting the value on the games. We've got Spread going for the plus money, and Snize late to the party, but he's got the best value in the price. Snize, tell me about this one.
Yeah, I've gone one up James there a little bit on that over selection. I've gone with the over 41.5, and I got it for minus 109, so slightly better price there. And I don't think that one game will end up mattering. Both of these gentlemen have done a great job of breaking down this game. Really, really impressed with Sandgren, who's just a really fit guy. Works really hard. And he's become a little bit of a slam warrior. Obviously made a great run at Wimbledon last season as well, and now he's coming in here in good form and put out Berrettini in a massive upset. And both of these are really, Sandgren has a surprising pop for his stature on a serve, and Query is obviously an extremely serve-dominated player. So we should see long sets, we should see at least 4 sets, and this to come in comfortably.
Okay, just in case you're wondering, we didn't get the graphics in time. Snize, very, very busy man yesterday, so no, not a problem. We're here to help. So basically, I will tweet out all of Snize, James, and Spread selections on Twitter. I will get SBR to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to come to you, Spread, and we're going to go with the Tsitsipas Raonic game.
Right, and I went over in this game. I think that we've got a great chance to see multiple sets and a lot of tie breaks here. We know that Raonic has a fantastic serve, and Tsitsipas, while I think that he's very solid from the ground strokes and he likes to play behind the baseline, sometimes his returns can be lacking, puts him behind in court position on a lot of return games, and for that reason, I believe that Raonic will be able to hold. Also, Tsitsipas, great job serving. It's really coming along. So basically what I'm looking for is I'm thinking we're going to get a 4 or 5 set match. And because of that factor, I decided to go for the over in this match. And expect to see a long, hard-fought battle. Be interesting to see how the backhand to backhand rallies go. I think that's where Tsitsipas has a little bit of an advantage. But I didn't want to jump on the side here. I think it's juiced too hard to Tsitsipas. So I decided to take a safer play, and I went the over in this match.
And you got over 42, so you haven't gone with the hook, the 0.5. Snize, you have gone for the hook, but you've gone under the 42, but you've gone over the 41.5. Break it down for me.
Yeah, like Spread said here, this is surprisingly the first meeting between these guys, or perhaps not surprisingly given how often Raonic is injured. But we have to remember Raonic is an extremely capable player. Had a good run here last year, really should have beaten Luca Poi, but was surprisingly upset there. Fantastic big banger of a serve, big hitting, moves fairly well for a man of his stature. Tsitsipas obviously broke into the top 10 last season, won the ATP finals, fantastic player, but he's extremely serve dominated, really weak on return with his one-handed backhand. He struggles to get into return games if he's facing a really good server. I would expect plenty of tie breaks in this match, as we have 2 of the biggest serves on the planet facing up against each other. So I've gone for the over 41.5 games. I got that at minus 109, so nice price there. And I've also gone... no, that was it actually.
Yeah, I'll call you. Don't worry. I've got all of your selections wrote down here, and I'll just keep coming back to you. Just listen. We're not galloping yet. We're just going to have a nice little canter. James, I'm going to come to you. I know you've got no more men's selections, but on the men's side of the draw, who surprised you, and do you think that the weather has played a bigger part?
Okay, so actually I think it's surprising to me at least. I mean, I could be wrong here, but it feels like the weather hasn't played as much of a part in the way we'd expect it to. Obviously, it rained a lot, and that meant a massive delay, but last round was pretty clean, 16 matches each. And I'd say probably the most surprising thing is actually we only had 4 underdog winners across both the men's and women's last night. We had a couple come really close. So, Seppi was very close to upsetting Wawrinka. Anderson should really have beaten Fritz, but he was not really an underdog. So I think last night, Ema as well, very close with Khachanov, but couldn't get it done. I'd say on the men's side, I haven't been hugely surprised by the results so far. Sangren is one of those players that can be up and down. It did surprise me, otherwise I would have tipped him to beat Berrettini. But at the same time, it was more one of those matches where he just showed that his athleticism and his counterpunching really, really comes to the fore against the bigger hitters. So I suppose he's been the one that's been most impressive. But I'll tell you what I was surprised about was that Verdasco or Basel managed to win in under 5 sets. I thought that was probably going to go to 5 sets, but no, he managed to serve it out.
Snize, can you give me a little rundown of your other men's individual bets, please?
All right, so apart from the two I've already broken down here, I'm on Guido Pella moneyline at minus 105. I haven't been overly impressed with Fabio Fognini this tournament. What impressed me was that he came back from 2 sets down against Riley Opelka, but he was massively helped by the rain delay that not only slowed down the courts, but also helped him get back his game a little bit. Usually not something that he does. He's pretty bad when he's in bad mood. He smashed his racket with his fingers, so he's actually hurt his playing hand quite badly. So really, really swollen. Lost 2 sets up to force a decider against Jordan Thompson. So he's played back-to-back 5-setters, and he's also had to play a deciding tiebreak. So not really impressed with him. Guido Pella has been making big runs on other surfaces than clay, most notably the Wimbledon quarterfinal last season. And I've been impressed with the way he plays. He really has a big forehand, and he actually gets quite a lot of uses out of it. Great at creating angles on the court. And I think he just has the edge. He has to be the fresher player here. I think they're quite evenly matched. But given Fognini's tendencies of dropping sets and being unfocused, and I don't think he's going to get away with that in this one. So Pella for me. I'm also on Tommy Paul moneyline as plus 140. What about Tommy Paul? Absolutely amazing match against Grigor Dimitrov a few days ago, where he managed to defeat the Bulgarian in 5 sets. I really did not see that coming, especially as Paul looked to be quite gassed after the 4th set. But he just speaks volumes about what kind of player he is, what kind of fighter he is, and what kind of mentality he has. Has a really nice game, a lot of upside, great movement, good serve, good ground strokes, just overall quite solid. I expect him to make good progress this season. Really has been coming for a long time, has plenty of talent. And I think that this is a great matchup against Fucsovics. He really just is quite solid, has no real A+ weapons. He's just very solid, and he's been faced with matchups in where that has been enough to win. He's faced the inconsistent Shapovalov, he's faced the young, inexperienced Yannick Sinner, so that's worked out well for him. But I think that Paul is the better player in this match, and I think he wins. So nice price there on the dog. I'm on Millman plus 8 games. This is a nightmare matchup for Roger Federer. They've faced 3 times, all the way back in 2015 when Millman was ranked 139 in the world, and Federer was obviously even better than he is now due to being a few years younger. He took a set off the Swiss. Obviously, the disaster loss for Federer in the US Open, still fresh in the minds, 3-1 to Millman there. And he also pushed him hard in Halle last year, took the first set to a tie break. So this is going to be a very, very tough battle for Federer, and though he's looked good, he's had exceptional matchups against Steve Johnson and Filip Krajinovic, not players he usually struggles with anyways. I think this one will be a struggle. I wouldn't surprise me to see Millman take a set, and I think that Federer will struggle to cover this handicap. Lastly, I have an article pick out on site on this as well, so I'm just going to be brief here. I'm on Batista Agut minus 4.5 games. I just think that Cilic has gained some confidence, but Batista Agut is still clearly the better player. And last year, these two faced, and Agut was off 2 5-setters, and yet still managed to win and cover this spread as the underdog. Now he's the favorite, so I think that he wins this with a bit to spare.
Thank you very much. Well, that concludes the first part of War and Peace, but obviously we'll go back to Snize for the second bit. Listen, we love your work. It's all right you giving me 6 or 7 selections, but the hours that go into it to get to that 6 or 7 selections is just, listen, I just give you so much love, which is unusual for me. Spread. Talk to me about these women, because we said before the start of the tournament that anyone in the top 20 can win. We've got question marks about so many. How do you think it's gone so far for the women?
I'm actually surprised that we haven't seen more upsets. You know, usually these first couple rounds of the Grand Slams are a minefield, and we're seeing seeds dropping left and right. We haven't really seen that yet so far. Our pre-tournament favorites are still rolling along, so I think it's really exciting that we're going to have some high-profile matchups as the tournament continues, and this could be a chalkier bracket than we're used to when dealing with the women on the Grand Slam side.
Okay, so we're looking at, obviously, Barty, we're looking at Osaka, Pliskova, obviously Serena Williams is in there, Wang. James, give me your first and only selection on the women's side on the round 3, please.
Right, so my selection comes from the match between Gorges and... I can't see it coming up on here for some reason.
It's Alison Risk.
No, I know, but I can't see it. Oh, sorry, I'm just going blind, yeah. So it's tomorrow, Alison Risk against Gorges. And this is, again, very similar to the last one, where we went for the overbet. I just don't see any reason to change tact. I mean, basically, Gorges is a very big server, and she's the kind of player who just generally... She's a power-orientated player, and you see this so often in both the men and women's side. If you're power-orientated, you're often going to be very solid on your own serve. You're going to be able to make an impact on the opponent's serve, but you're not going to be as dominant as someone like, I mean, to use the obvious example, someone like Djokovic, who will soak up every single ball on return and force you to grind out every point. She's not going to do that. She'll give you several unforced errors. And, I mean, Risk is also just a player that's generally been excellent to bet on for overbets. They both have over the past 12 months. Virtually even-priced match, which, again, very often good for the overbets. I think in the women's side, because it's generally bad for overbets, what you sometimes see is when you have players who are 5'11", 6 foot, that actually you can get quite good value on the overs because the bookies are pricing them too generically. So the same way in the men's, where I think they often price the overs too generically high because men just tend to have longer matches. I think in the women's, they price them too generically low. So when you get two big servers, big hitters, you can often get a nice price on something which has come in, 65, 70% of the time historically, which is what we have here.
Okay, Rafa, can you leave that graphic up, please? Because Snize has duplicated it. Snize, why have you duplicated?
I think James broke it down really well. Gerges is an exceptionally powerful server, has a huge forehand that she likes to step in and dominate the points with, and we've seen that to good effect already during this week. And these faster courts will obviously only help that game of hers really comfortable down here. Risk, on the other hand, is a player that hits the ball very flatly. She steps into the court and takes the ball on the rise, really taking time away from her opponent. And I think this will be a matchup in where the serve is dominant. Gerges struggles in the movement department. I think Risk will be able to move her from side to side on her own delivery quite easily, whilst I think Risk will struggle to return the power of the Gerges serve and forehand. If we look at the head-to-head meetings between these women, they're actually quite relevant, as all three have surpassed this line, including the two that were played last year, and all of these have been played on hard court as well. So I'm expecting to see longer sets. I'm expecting to see something like 6-4, 7-5s, and it wouldn't surprise me if this went to distance, but I really do like the over 21.5.
Yeah, and the best thing I can say to the people that are watching is it's great when all three of these boys, or two of the three, they duplicate, they want to be on the same line. And obviously with like Query and Sangren, we had 3 different bets, all going the same way. Spread, I'm going to come back to you, and we're going to be talking about Serena Williams.
That's right, Flash. And you know what? Usually when we're attacking this WTA bracket and looking for the value, we're finding it in the underdogs. But scouring this third round, I really didn't find a lot. I think that what I had mentioned earlier with the top seeds coming into form is coming into play. We haven't had anyone show up that did a little too much vacationing, maybe wasn't ready for the season to start. A lot of these women on the top side of the bracket are feeling very nice about the way that they're playing. Serena Williams is one of them. She never enters a tournament unless she plans on winning. It was quite evident in Auckland when she was just able to cruise to a title to start the season. And now what we're looking here is we have a rematch of a U.S. Open match where she blew Qian Wang off the court. And it was really just too bad because I really enjoy Wang as a player very much. And I was hoping that she would have a good matchup against Serena in the U.S. Open. That didn't materialize. And unfortunately, I kind of expect the same thing to happen. The Australian Open plays a little quicker than the U.S. Open, which is going to favor Serena even more. Serena's in here. She's on a mission. She's also very smart and knows she doesn't need to extend these early round matches. She's not prone to the lapses in concentration and form that some of the other top players are. She understands that she needs to conserve energy and get off the court quickly because she's here for 7 matches, and that's the way that she's planning to play. So I expect her to make quick work of a young player who I really enjoy in Qian Wang. So it's disappointing that I have to make this pick, but unfortunately I think that Serena's going to cover the -6 games quite easily.
So we're looking at maybe 6-2, 6-3. That brings it to about 17 games. So Snize,
yeah,
tell me your angle, because 6-2, 6-3 will suit you down to the ground.
Indeed. So I have a similar angle, but at the same time a different one in this match. I've gone with the under 18.5 games, which I got for a really good price, plus 100 on that. And I think just as I actually have an article on this as well, but just as Spread said, Serena Williams is looking more fit than she has since returning from childbirth, and she's lost weight. She's improved her movement a bit. She looks to be playing with intense desire. She's lost 4 consecutive Grand Slam finals now, and still chasing Margaret Court's 24 to tie that record. And I'm sure she's looking to do it here, where she last won her Grand Slam in 2017. She usually does not need turn up, so for her to go in, play Auckland, win not only the singles title but the doubles title as well in Auckland is a very good sign for her. She's been extremely dominant thus far. She has won 6-love, 6-3, and 6-2, 6-3, only dropping serve the once. Wang Qiang is an exceptionally gifted player, great at redirecting pace, but she struggles to deal with the power, the overwhelming power of Serena Williams. She was nervous when they faced back in the US Open, but it was an absolute obliteration. 6-1, 6-love in 44 minutes. And as Brett said, I see something different here. The caveat for me, the good thing for me here is I cash even in a 6-3, 6-3 scenario, but I think it's going to be a bigger victory than that.
Okay, James, I look at the women's side and it looks like the stars have all prepped well and they're coming out the traps, and it sets them up for a great season.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember, I actually said in the futures video that I had a weird feeling that it was going to be less underdoggy. I mean, I don't know why exactly I felt like that on the women's side, but I just did have a feeling from what I'd seen the week before that actually we're going to have a little bit less interesting, to be honest, of a tournament in the early rounds. I think obviously the big advantage of that, as we've seen over the years with the big 3 on the men's side, is that you get some fantastic matchups. As Spread said, in these next few rounds, we're going to get some really, really interesting matchups. So yeah, for me, obviously, I'm hoping Pliskova is the one that can shine the most, as she did at the start of the year. I mean, I thought she was incredibly impressive. But really, most of the top guys are looking very clinical to me. They're looking like they're really mean business. And as you say, I think it's going to be chalkier.
Okay, Spread. Osaka versus Coco Gauff. The heart says Gauff, but the head says Osaka, too strong, too experienced.
Right, and you're absolutely right. And the WTA probably wouldn't mind Coco Gauff winning too. What a story she's become, taking over the national media here in the U.S., and they love her. But unfortunately, we're looking at a similar situation to the match that I just handicapped, and it's a rematch of a U.S. Open beatdown in which Coco Gauff simply was not ready for the power of Naomi Osaka. Looking at Naomi Osaka, she is more comfortable than I've seen her since her ascension to the top. We know that she struggled with the media commitments at first and the amount of attention she was receiving. Very naturally shy young woman. She's come into her own. Some of her most recent press conferences have been just absolutely delightful in how comfortable she is with herself and the press and her newfound fame. And I think that confidence is trickling over onto the tennis court, and we're seeing that in her game. She feels more comfortable, and she's not getting as hard on herself when she does make errors, which when you have a big hitting game like Osaka is going to happen. Now, Coco Gauff, what a great story. It's been so much fun. I've watched both of her matches so far, but let's be frank, beating Venus Williams, who's really at the last legs of her career, and then Sorana Castella, who is a fine player, and I like backing her at internationals and the 280 level. You know, between the 50 and 100, she can compete quite nicely. But that's nothing to prepare you for what you're going to see with Naomi Osaka, who can just blister the ball right off the court. She takes the return really low, so the ball is going to come back even quicker to Coco. And as young as athletic she is, she hasn't necessarily translated her athleticism into actual court movement yet. I'm sure she will. She's so young, such an exciting young prospect. But really, she's just not ready for the big stage yet. And I think that Naomi is going to dispatch her fairly easily.
Well, the romantics, they definitely want Coco Gauff. I go to Snize. Snize and romance don't go together, do they, Snize?
Well, not in this scenario, no.
Not in any scenario.
I think.
What about Bianca Flash? Come on. Don't forget Bianca.
We shall see. I'll show you some pictures of what's going on over here. Anyways,
hey, keep them to yourself.
Osaka versus Gauff. I think that let's be real. Osaka, to me, is the best player in the tournament. When she's on a run, she's nigh unstoppable. And she showed a disparity in quality between these two players when they faced at the US Open. It was an absolute beatdown. Obviously, it's going to be a very hyped up match. And I think this hype actually gives us extra value on Osaka, as the hype surrounding Coco Gauff, being the 15-year-old phenom that she is inflating her prices and making her a much closer dog than I would have rated her in this matchup. I think that her movement is quite limited for being so young. She packs a lot of muscle, just like Serena and Venus, and thus movement will be the area she needs to work with the most. And she still has a lot of work to do there. Obviously, she's only 15 years old. But I think that just Osaka, she's going to come out, she's going to play her game, very calm and collected, not going to care too much about all the fuss, and she's just going to go out and do her job, and I think that's going to be enough for a comfortable victory.
Okay, well, I'm going to stay with you, Snize, because I've got Alexandrova versus Kvitova. You've got free bets, and value comes pouring out.
Yeah, exactly. So Alexandrova, Ekaterina Alexandrova, the Russian, she's been on an absolute tear to start the season. She won the title in Shenzhen, and has just been looking brilliant here thus far. She did lose a set to Jill Teichmann, but I think that was an aberration. Overall, she's looked scintillating, has a huge serve and a massive ground stroke. And what impresses me the most with Alexandrova is the depth that she gets on her ground strokes. So it's not only power, but it's depth as well that really gets her opponents on the back foot, forcing them to reply with shorter balls, which she then just mercilessly puts away. Petra Kvitova needs a very short, obviously doesn't really need an introduction, but fantastic player, has won Wimbledon before, huge serve, huge forehand, one of the best players in the game, and just naturally a big hitter, got that big lefty serve that's going to bring trouble to all of our opponents. And usually when we have these matchups between the really big hitters, the really big servers, it's going to be hard to make inroads on the return because they are so talented at getting the short reply, getting an ace, or just getting an unreturnable serve. So similarly to what we talked about in the Risk-Gerges match, I think this will be very serve-dominated. And as James also said, when we have these really big hitters, these tall women serving, the books are actually a bit too generally underpricing these overlines. So I've gone with the first set to go over 9.5 games at plus 100. This is not a high total for men's tennis, but for women's tennis it is. But with these two players, I don't think we'll have any problem clearing that. I've also followed that up with the over 10.5 games. And here we see a massive price increase to plus 275. And I think it's very likely that we see a set go to 7-5 here. And then I've also gone with the value on the first set tiebreak at plus 600. This should be nowhere near 600 with these two players facing off. A first set tiebreak is quite likely, a lot more likely than those odds imply.
We love that.
Yeah.
We love that. Plus 100 over 9.5, plus 275 over 10.5, and the whopping plus 600 over 12.5. You will definitely be romancing if that plus 600 comes in. I know that. So you've got one more for me. Give it to me before I get a rundown from the boys. Snize, one more.
Yeah. Yep. So just real quickly on this Kvitov thing, I've wagered this the way that I've gone half stakes on both the 10.5 and the 12.5. So if you only get 10, you'll be breaking even. Anything else than that is that you're making big money. So the last pick for me is a moneyline parlay of Sofia Kenin and Karolina Wozniacki. I think they're both up against opponents they should be beating here. As we've talked about, the shock has really been coming into surprising form here. Over on the women's side, we haven't really seen that many upsets. I think that this is going to be a continuation of that. We have Caroline Wozniacki in her last tournament before retirement. She's played exceptionally well thus far. I'm really, really impressed. She beat an in-form, up-and-coming opponent in Diana Ostremska in straight sets, and that was extremely impressive to me. I don't think that she'll have similar struggles in her next match here, in which she's facing up against Ons Jabeur, she's really just been beating up on Caroline Garcia and Jo Konta, which are both struggling right now with their game. And then we have Kenin against Zhang. I think these are similar type of players, really good at redirection, really good at counterpunching, taking the ball early. But I think Kenin is just better at in all elements of the game. She has the more powerful serve. She has the more powerful ground strokes, while she does everything that Zhang does. So I think both of these women will win. And we have a plus 118 on that parlay.
Love that. Kenin to win on the money line, Wozniacki on the money line. I think it was myself, James, and Spread that said if Wozniacki gets herself in front, she will free flow because she's got nothing to lose. And when you've got Wozniacki free flow with nothing to lose, she's going to be dangerous. We like that and we're cheering her on. Okay, Spread, I'm going to come back to you. As just a quick rundown of who you like in the men's and who you like in the women's.
Yeah, so just run down to my plays. I had Tennis Sandgren plus 140 over Sam Querrey. A great match. I expect to see Tennis pull it out from the baseline. I took the over in Tsitsipas Raonic. Two big servers. Both men struggle with return. I think Tsitsipas will be able to pull it out. But the line was much too high for me to bet Tsitsipas, so I tacked the over. On the women's side, I just took two favorites to advance and advance quite cleanly, and that is Serena Williams -6 at plus 100. And we're going to take defending champion Naomi Osaka minus 5.5 gains against the upstart phenom Corey Gauff.
Spread, love that. Short, sharp, to the point. On the outrights, please, James. Men, women, are you happy with your picks?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously not happy with Collins going out. But I think on the men's side, they've looked pretty clean to me so far. Medvedev maybe made it a bit hard for himself against Tiafoe, but he was very clean last round. Wawrinka, I suppose this is what Wawrinka tends to do, struggles a bit in the early rounds, and if he manages to get through, it seems to make him play better. So, yeah, I mean, as I said before, the tournament, the Australian is one of the trickiest to handicap from a futures perspective. Because it is just so favourite dominant. Federer or Djokovic have won 13 of the last 14 years. I mean, that's just ridiculous. The big three have won 13 of the last 14 years. So it's just kind of like, from my perspective, I'm still pretty happy attacking the top half, still happy taking a go at Rafa. And Djokovic and Federer have looked pretty clinical. So I'm kind of happy I avoided that for now, at least.
Yeah, we like that. Okay, that gives me time just to say thank you to Snize. Thank you to James. Thanks, Spread, getting up so early. Obviously, the boys are on the other side of the world. It's an absolute armchair ride for them. But listen, I love your work, gentlemen, and we'll be going through round 4 next week. So enjoy the tennis. Let's hope we're sitting here next week with all our futures in place and a few winners. And I will be sending out a tweet with these boys' plays on as well. So thanks, Snize. Thanks, James. Top man, Spread. And we'll see you again soon. You take care.
Cheers, Flash.
Take care.
Thanks,
See you next
Flash.
week. Happy weekend, guys.
So that's the boys. They're ready to rock and roll in round 3. Down under Australian Open, the first Grand Slam. The boys and the women, they both seem to be up for it. They've prepped great. So we'll see you soon. Take care.